I am the Spectator. I watch all that transpire here, and though I cannot interfere, today I shall continue to tell you the story of the one and only Buggy the Clown. Last time we stopped with Buggy following Fate's advice and entering into the Grand Line. During his travels in the Grand Line, Buggy kept a keen eye on Luffy and was excited to learn that the boy had received 100 million bounty. One day, he and his crew met with the Fire Fist Ace, who was the second commander of Buggy and Roger's old rivals, the Whitebeard crew, and Buggy ordered his crew not to attack any member of Whitebeard's crew, not wanting to anger the old man, moreover, not wanting to reveal his true self. Sometime later, as fate must have it, Buggy entered a cave in search of the legendary treasure left behind by Captain John, but alas, he was ambushed and captured by the entire might of a marine garrison. Even so, Buggy did not reveal his true might, getting a gut feeling that fate had plans for him at Impel Down. And not knowing his true might, the world government locked him up in the prison that had allegedly never seen an escape. Sometime later, whilst patiently awaiting for fate to call upon his services, he sensed a familiar haki that put a smile on his face. He snuck out of his cell to confirm his hunch, and voila, he ran into none other than Monkey D. Luffy, who had snuck into prison. Buggy was shocked at the boy's actions, and initially treated the lad with hostility, but the two ended up teaming together to fight the Blueberry. To Buggy's great surprise and satisfaction, Luffy was able to easily defeat the brutes, each with not more than a single punch. An impressed Buggy inquired about Luffy's plans. The boy revealed that he planned to go down to level 5 to rescue none other than Ace. A further impressed Buggy made a show of reluctance and decided to further test the boy's character. He asked the boy for the armband that the boy was wearing, which Buggy knew to be a map that pointed towards Captain John's treasure. And to Buggy's utter shock and surprise, though the boy had only ever known the vile and conniving side of Buggy, Luffy immediately gave him the band, knowing all too well that it pointed toward Captain John's treasure. What further impressed Buggy was the fact that the boy trusted people based on his heart, rather than anything else, and Buggy immediately felt drawn to Monkey D. Luffy and his purpose, much like he was drawn to his old captain, Gold D. Roger. And thus, Buggy decided to help the boy on his quest. Crashing through the guard's room into the crimson hell of level 1, Buggy used his root abilities to ensure safe passage for the duo as he carried Luffy over the spike-covered terrain. The two of them then reached a pit that led downwards. Luffy immediately jumped in as Buggy distracted the Blueberry that had followed them, and then he too jumped down too. Luffy and Buggy were immediately confronted by the gigantic chicken reptile basilisk, hailing from the wild beast hell of level 2. Buggy was once again surprised by the gigantic boost in power Luffy had gained since their last meeting, as Luffy used Gear 3 to defeat the brutish monstrosity before them. Seeing the many prisoners of level 2, many on the verge of, and many having already fallen into the well of despair and hopelessness, Buggy instantly notched a plan for chaos and freed them all. However, the prisoners were too scared to step out of their cells as long as the boss of level 2 was still walking. Buggy and Luffy decided to move forward, but Buggy admitted to Luffy that he had little to no idea on how to get down to level 3. And in stepped Galdino, the former Mr. 3 of the Baroque Works, offering to guide them. Buggy was immediately on alert to any malicious intentions Galdino may have planned, and decided to keep an eye on him to protect the very much naive Monkey D. Luffy. Galdino guided the duo to the stairs that would take them to the next level, and this is where the trio encountered the boss of the level, the gigantic leonine creature, the Sphinx. When Galdino made plans to escape, Buggy talked to him and inspired him to help fight. When the Sphinx started to attack, Galdino used his Sphax clones to distract the creature, and Buggy readied himself to unleash the power that he had kept locked up inside. But alas, the floor they stood on could only take so much of the giant kitty playing whack-a-mole, and it collapsed, sending the jailbreak trio and the monster down too. Landing in the intense heat of starvation hell, the trio along with the unconscious monster were caught in a sea stone net, rendering the 3 fruit users, including the mighty Buggy, powerless. Luckily, the Sphinx awoke and in its blind rage tore apart the net, freeing the 3. Buggy and Galdino asked Luffy to move forward while they climbed the rafters to distract the Sphinx. Having escaped the monster, the separated duo, as fate must have it, are drawn to a cell by a song from hell, which they find out was being sung by none other than Bentham, the foreman number 2 of Baroque Works. The 3 discuss the current situation and decide that Bentham will join Luffy below, whilst Buggy and Galdino try to make more chaos in the upper levels to slow down reinforcements. However, the 2 future crewmates are pushed back to Luffy and Bentham's location by the awakened Zoan, the jailer beast, Minotaurus. Buggy is forced to showcase a fraction of his power under the guise of a special Muggy Ball to finish off the beast, but the tremors caused by this fraction of Buggy's power result in the collapse of the floor beneath them, sending them toppling down too. As the jailbreak gang walk in the scorching heat of blazing hell, Bentham mentions that the kitchen is on this level. Luffy, wanting to reinvigorate, decided to go there, whilst Buggy and Galdino decided to execute their plan for chaos. The exits to the level were heavily guarded by Wise Warden of Impeltown. Galdino was knocked out, and Buggy used this opportunity to finally test his limits. But alas, the Warden and co were no match for the mere fraction of his true power that he used. However, unbeknownst to Buggy, Luffy had fallen prey to the Chief Warden Magellan's poisonous powers. To think that if only Buggy was there with Luffy, Ace would have been saved. The Summit War would never have happened. Blackbeard would not have had the Gura Gura no Mi. But alas, not in this reality. After all, fate must have her way. Once Galdino came to be, Buggy, for reason known to him alone, decided to hide his true powers. Hiding behind the walls of wax, over the next 20 hours, the 2 managed to reach level 2. They used wax keys to set the prisoners free to start a riot under the leadership of their savior, Buggy the Clown. With his newfound followers, Buggy pressed forward and upward to level 1, to exit the hellish prison. At the exit, the 4 demon beast guards confronted Buggy and the crew. Just as Buggy was contemplating about revealing his true power, Luffy and co reached there and knocked out all 4 of them. The jailbreak crew were then confronted by a pissed off Magellan, but to everyone's surprise, Galdino's wax proved impenetrable to Magellan's poison. Luffy, talking like the natural leader that he is, decided to stay back, fight alongside Galdino, to buy some time for the rest of the crew to get a ship ready. As Buggy and the rest of the jailbreaks reached the light, they found that no ships were docked at the shore. Jinbei, the Knight of the Sea, hatched up a plan. He ripped off the humongous door of the prison and carried Crocodile, Dasbones and Buggy toward the marine fleet. The 4 battled shortly and easily hijacked a nearby battleship, while damaging a few other marine ships. Jinbei then called upon whale sharks to carry the rest of the prisoners towards the ship. Once aboard the ship, the prisoners celebrated their freedom, but their celebrations were cut short when they found out that with the gates of justice closed, there was no true escape. That was when the true hero of the jailbreak, Bonchan, stepped in. Sacrificing himself for the rest of them, for Luffy, he impersonated Magellan and got the gates open, thus completing the escape from Impeltown and proving that even in hell, the flower of friendship may bloom. The crew on board was saddened by the demise of their Bonchan. Buggy tried to lift their spirits, but when the escaped prisoners found out that the ship was heading to Marineford to stop the execution of Fire for Stays, sadness gave way to rage, and they were ready to riot. It was at this moment that the prisoners were contacted by the Marine headquarters, and they identified the master brains behind the escape as Straw Hat Monkey D. Luffy and the legendary Buggy the Clown. Headquarters went on to reveal that Buggy was once part of the crew that conquered Grand Line, the Roger Pirates, and that he was like a brother to one of the 4 emperors, red-haired chunks. This induced admiration, inspiration, and moreover, awe in the escaped prisoners, who together proclaimed that they will mutiny against Luffy and co. if Buggy would lead them. Fools, Buggy called them, and he gave them a speech asking them to calm down and think about how close they are to the pinnacle, invoking the former prisoners' long-lost ability to dream. If you're a man, come with me and chase my dream, Buggy called to them. Prisoners, now out of the darkness of hell, now daring to dream in daylight, pledged to follow their captain Buggy to the ends of the world. And follow they did, as Buggy and crew sailed into the war that would change the course of the world.